I'd like to move on to our keynote speaker, who happens to be a Founder Institute graduate, and we're very excited to have him here, Eren Bali, founder of Udemy.
Hi everyone, my name is Eren Bali. I was at the very first Founder Institute batch. So it was like a large batch, maybe 40 or 50 people. It was very different back then. I think there was a mantra to leave no founders behind. So the goal was to graduate everybody, which can change very drastically. So let's only try to graduate the best people who are very serious about this. But yeah, it was actually a interesting experience for me. I'll talk about it, but let me give you guys kind of quick background of myself and the companies I started. So I was the founder and CEO of Udemy, which we started as a part of Founders Institute, and I also more recently started a company called Cohort, where I'm still the founder and CEO. So quick background first. So Udemy was essentially, the base category for Udemy has not changed since the first time we started the company in 2007. So kind of long story, but we started the company in Turkey first, and the mission has not changed almost at all. Versus my new company, we iterated a lot, so I want to kind of give both of them as background for both companies, so that you guys get a kind of sense of like the different considerations. So this is me and my two older sisters. So I was born in a very small village in southeast part of Turkey, kind of the rural side of the country. Not much as opportunities. But like growing up, I was very interested in chess. I think chess was probably my first passion, so I started playing very kind of competitively since the age, I guess, 4. And I got interested in mathematics, but there wasn't really a lot of room to grow, kind of grow into your capacity if you're born in a small village in southeast part of Turkey, right? So it's kind of, imagine the area is closer to Iran or Iraq. So, but for me, something happened that changed my life. So my older sister was eventually going to college, and my parents bought her a computer. So over the summer, I had access to the computer. I started playing chess on it, and I started finding mathematical resources, communities, and long story short, I actually ended up kind of self-training myself for like more advanced mathematics using the internet and nothing else. And I ended up winning the kind of the gold medal in Turkey's national math Olympiads and silver medal internationally. So for me, I'm not saying this is just to brag about it, but I kind of realized internet was not going to create a completely leveling field, but it would actually give a chance for people to catch up. And I'm kind of looking at the back right now. I got into chess again after 25 years. So, and I realized back in the day, you could only be a grandmaster. You could only expect to be the world champion if you were born in Soviets and if you're in one of the major areas where like chess was very competitive. But now with the internet, it's so much more democratized, right? Now if you look at the top 2, it's far more diverse. A lot of countries bring up winners, and Norway, which is a small country, has the kind of world champion right now. So Magnus Carlsen from Norway. So essentially, internet definitely democratized the concept of being competitive at chess. And I think it's also making big impact in the rest of the world as well. So, I don't know what's happening. Okay. All right. So before we even came to the Silicon Valley, and before I joined Founders Institute, so we started the company like we did originally in Turkey. It was called Nobel back in the day, 2007. This is us. Like really, we had like one small room that we had rented in Ankara, the capital of Turkey, and we were just like working and like just together to build something. With our plastic chairs, like those are like $5 chairs and probably $10 desks there. So that's how we got started. But the kind of mission was very simple, right? So internet could create some level field. So we thought like if we made it possible for anybody to teach online, to like share their expertise online, and a lot of people around the world could be learning from those people, right? So we thought experts are not necessarily coming from top college or top education institutions. Experts could be coming everywhere. So if you actually just provide a platform for them, it could actually have a kind of outsized impact on the world. So we started in Turkey The original product was a live education marketplace instead of an on-demand education marketplace like it is today, but the concept was very similar, like a marketplace where experts and kind of students can connect to each other and learn from each other. But we very quickly realized in 2007, Turkey was the wrong time, wrong place, and wrong product. It was the wrong time. There was zero like education ecosystem there was no startup ecosystem in Turkey at all. Like no angel investors, no one who would understand what a share like an option means, right? So and second is like even in the United States, Silicon Valley, 2007 was way too early. So a lot of the video streaming or the kind of live communication tools were kind of really early, like they were not very functioning properly. So and like we did not have kind of devices with standard microphones and cameras. So it was actually not the right time, even if you were in the Bay Area. And lastly, live education was the wrong product for what we were trying to get. It had to be, so Udemy's idea is like connecting the experts, students, and instructors, but when you're very small, it's really hard to bring like instructors and students who are interested in the same subject together. But if you also bring them together in the same time, that becomes an impossible problem to solve. And after Udemy, probably 100 more companies were started for kind of Udemy for live education, including Google started to help us. They all failed. So we very quickly realized after launch that it was not going to work, right? So, but because there were no investors in Turkey, so I was actually funding the company by working at night for Silicon Valley companies as a kind of nighttime developer. So just at night I would work for companies here, and during the day we would actually work on Udemy together, together. So because of that, I had some connection to a couple companies here. So one of them brought me here full time. So we had to kind of decide to shut down the company. So, and that's the part. Like I came in, we started working for the startup, which I learned a lot from that company as well. But I was really still very kind of passionate about Udemy. But because we had failed once, but we didn't really think that we could actually recover it, right? So my co-founders had like everybody had left, all the team had left already, stopped working on it. And yeah, so we had pretty much given up on the idea, and actually initially applied to Founders to do a different idea. So we did a business-oriented social network for a local newspaper agency, like back in 2008 or 9. So we made some money. We said, okay, let's just make a kind of business-oriented social network, kind of scale it. That was the idea. We kind of attended first sessions. A lot of the mentors correctly identified that this was a terrible idea, right? So, but like one day I was talking to Adrian. So we were maybe like about to be kicked out, I guess, so because we did not have any kind of viable idea there. So, and I said, like, we had built this thing like a couple of years ago. What do you think about it? I think still it was very innovative. And I just said, this is extremely innovative. This is exactly what we should be working on. So I was already wanting to take it again, but the kind of additional motivation was huge for us. And one of my co-founders, Gagan, so he was working on another idea, which was also a terrible idea. But we eventually kind of convinced him to join us to kind of build Udemy together. So we kind of renamed it from Noban to Udemy, launched the company. So unlike some of the other founders, we like just to kind of be fair, like I was an engineer, so my other co-founder, we brought all of most of my former team from Turkey to Silicon Valley to work in other startups. But the plan was to eventually get them back to Udemy as soon as we had funding, right? So we'd already built some of the application, and we kind of threw everything we did before and rebuilt Udemy as an on-demand education marketplace instead of a live education marketplace. And I'll skip the story a little fast, probably, but so I guess one of the slides is kind of okay. It's here. So, but I'll fast forward and come back. So Udemy today has roughly 500 employees. We raised $170 million. It is like the largest online education platform. So we are a lot larger than some of the companies you might have heard of, like Coursera, Udemy. So it was a very competitive business, but we ended up becoming very successful. We will probably take it public next year or so. But I think if you again pull back from the day we were thinking about taking this idea again, so we decided to kind of do it again. We went through the program, and Founders Institute program was great for us because we were all essentially, two of us were immigrant entrepreneurs, and Gagan was a fresh grad. None of us had any real job experience, and this program was actually a kind of late night evening program, so we could actually continue to work full time in a company and do it on the side, right? So that was very important because our visas all kind of relied on essentially our full time jobs. There was no other way we could actually get this started. But we learned a lot through the program, and the reality is not everything we learned in the program became immediately useful. Because when you first start, you have to build a product, you have to be good at those kind of things, and those are not easy to learn in a 5-10 week entrepreneurship program. You might do maybe development bootcamp to kind of help with that. But what happened is over the next couple years, I would keep opening the old videos again. I would actually pull them back. I'll look at what people talked about branding and research and IP, and that became essentially almost like a curriculum we got that was very impactful to us over the next 4 or 5 years of the company, right? Not just when we first started, right? But really, you had to push something yourself, but it actually gave us both confidence and some of the basic understanding to get started. We met with a lawyer named Jochen Taku, who was who was drafting the first original Founders Institute documents, and he's still my lawyer after 10 years. Both companies, I've been working with him. Our first investor was one of the Founders Institute mentors named Russ Radin. So he was interested in education, he liked what we were doing, and then he became the first angel investor. And then once we got him out, the rest of the round was really fast to kind of cook the fill out. So fundraising was not easy at all, but still it was great to start with some network. Right? So it's really hard if you're not a Silicon Valley native person who already has a huge network in the Bay Area. If you're not in that kind of minority of the population, it's really critical to get some initial network who will make some introduction, will introduce you to more people. So for us, I don't think there's any way we could get this up and running without the Founders Institute. So, but again, the rest of the story is sort of we raised the first round, we started growing fast, and then we started growing 20% month over month for 4 years in a row. And then even if you had small amount of revenue in the beginning, after 4 years of 20% month over month growth, you became a huge company. So, so that was a kind of wild ride. But I think post Founders Institute, we also got really in touch with all the other people in the institute. For example, some of the people in my class are investors right now. They are VCs that we talk to, and some of my other friends have raised money from them. So actually, the original network has become more than just initial support group. But it was definitely I think the team of people who are doing the program together is probably the most important thing long term, right? The mentors are good. They give you some connections, maybe some advice, but they are usually busy people who have kind of critical full-time jobs. They're not going to be next to you all the time, but your classmates are actually where the real value, in long-term value comes. So I'll actually move forward with my personal background. So, but quick thing, it's funny when we first were ideating about Udemy as a part of Founders Institute, we had this session about what would be the perfect dream thing to happen on your business. So we said, the dream is if, for example, said Gordon was teaching a course on Udemy, that was my dream, right? And I think Gagan has selected Negras, sorry, I forgot his name. But so Negras Tyson, and so we pick these nobody the last 3 names here were listed in our dream things to happen as a part of your company, and it happened before 2005. Actually, in less than 5 years, all those 3 people were actually teaching course on Udemy. So, and what happened is, so Udemy, I was this founder student at Udemy for the first 5 years. I eventually stepped down, and I got very interested in healthcare. So I'm still chairman at Udemy, still fairly involved, fairly active with the company. But I decided to start a new company, and I want to talk about the story of it because I think the contrast is interesting. So once I was obviously an established entrepreneur at Udemy, everything changes, just to be very clear about it. So the first time you want to raise money is very easy if you have at least one success story. And the reality is in your first company, you don't have any track record, you'll get really low valuations, which happened to us at Udemy. So like we got very diluted, we lost control very fast. So things like that happened, which were not ideal. But the reality is, we were high-risk entrepreneurs. It was a big risk to bet on us, right? So, and what happens if you have one successful company and you raise another company? That's where you get, now it's your turn, right? Now you get amazing terms, like you have super voting power, and all the investors will line up to kind of give money to you. So it changed very quickly, but when if it's your first company and the company is not exploding in terms of growth, you will have to give up, right? So that is normal, but you still get very successful and very rich when you become successful, but like it's still different when you are doing your second company, right? And maybe some of you guys will start one company and then will be your life's company, so that's really the kind of big dream for most people. But for me, like I got interested in healthcare kind of almost on an accident, right? So what happened is I was still the student of Udemy, and my mom is still back in Turkey, and she had basic back pain, abdominal pain, and in 1 week she had a full body stroke. So really her entire body had like independently kind of like got stroke, and she wasn't able to move pretty much anything. And I had to take 4 months of work to go back to Turkey. My sister's a physician, so she lined up some of the best specialist professors to look at my mom and understand what was happening. So, and what we did first was we wanted to extract all of my mom's medical records from all the hospitals she had been to, all of her primary care records, her medical images, PET scans, lab results. Like you just kind of compiled everything. This is not the real folder, but it's it was a 1,500-page document that my sister had generated with all the DVDs, MRIs, everything kind of attached to it. Right? So she perfectly cataloged everything, and we were going from doctor to doctor. And each doctor was doing kind of the same thing. So they would look at, I don't know why some of the slides are not coming, but okay. So each doctor was doing the same thing. They would actually look at every page, maybe write 2 words into their notebook, and then they would look at their notebook to make a decision. So I asked my sister, so what are they writing on their notebook? And she said they are making a chronology of the case so that they can understand what's happening. And I said, why aren't we giving the chronology to them so that they can, instead of spending 2 hours looking at everything, they can spend 2 minutes skimming through a kind of, essentially a presentation of the problem that in a way that's presented in a way which makes more sense to physicians, right? So, and while I was waiting from doctor to doctor, I made this very original sketch about what it would look like if you actually made a medical health record design that kind of resonates with physicians. So I made this initial mock-up, so like sudden collapse of nervous system with stroke. So from like essentially presenting my mom's case, I said, like there should be a chronological order, just as my sister, all these doctors were generating on their notebook, right? And then all the medical records, all the lab results, all the images, everything should be there so that people can look at them, comment on them, and multiple doctors can work on them together. So I just made this 1-page design. And eventually one of the professors diagnosed what was happening, so it was a rare disease called neurosarcoidosis. Just remember perfectly, my mom recovered, no sad story here, right? So everything was going well, but it's kind of idea of like the observation that this entire tool set for physicians, which is one of the most expensive resources in the world, right, is the time of the physicians. The tools they were using were so inefficient, and really nothing about the technology stack they were using made sense to them. And I know that it did not make sense for patients either, so that kind of got stuck in my head for a long time. So I went back to Udemy, but after a year or so, I decided to actually take a step at kind of solving this even larger problem of kind of healthcare being extremely inefficient, and really the technology kind of making the patients and doctors' life miserable instead of making it better. But what happened is, honestly, I had the vision or the idea, almost like I wanted to do what we are doing today, but when we first started, we didn't think that it was going to be viable. So we didn't think redesigning the entire healthcare technology stack from the ground up was an idea that even I could kind of get on, start with. So we picked something small. We said, let's make a small community of physicians who can share medical records with each other, like this complex cases with each other. They can comment on it. So almost like a Stack Overflow made for physicians. But the idea was to kind of create a structured data set so that it becomes a kind of large repository of very interesting, complex cases, and physicians can search through these things. So that became the kind of a smaller version of the idea. So we decided we actually built the first version. We raised some money with just the idea, and this is what happens. Like if you have one successful company, you have the idea, you send an email to a couple of people, and you get a round done, right? So that's roughly what happened. So, and very quickly we realized it was a kind of bad idea, right? So it was, I think I'll have to. So it was a bad idea because the medical records were actually really locked in the health record systems, right? And if you had no control on them, it was really tricky to extract them to an outside place. And for doctors, it was going to be too much work to kind of do that from the beginning, right? So, and we started ideating more about how people discover what the more key problems there. And we kind of came up, we realized essentially the entire healthcare system, there's so much disconnect around the patient care. That was kind of the core problem. And at the greedy side, so at Udemy, our success came from creating a destination, online learning destination, without having to produce all the courses ourselves. And similarly, Uber became the world's largest transportation company without owning any cars. So, and again, Airbnb is in a way the world's largest hotel network without owning any of the rooms or any of the kind of buildings. So I started having this kind of bigger idea of what would it look like if you wanted to build the world's largest healthcare provider, right? If you want to do what Uber did with transportation, become the actual provider without owning the assets, what would it look like? That was kind of, that became this question that like kind of started eating my mind as we were working on this other idea. And one kind of Christmas day, I made this 200-page sketch of what healthcare experience would look like if we were building this for ourselves. So at that point, I had not even told my team about it, right? But this was kind of the idea, like if we build the entire healthcare experience from the patient's perspective and own that piece, and we also kind of proactively build the entire physician experience from the electronic health records, so scheduling, messaging, billing, e-prescription. It's a very complex product problem, right? So usually most health systems use somewhere between 10 to 15 different software to capture that. And they're really bad, really disconnected, coming from like 90s designs. So we said, like, if you just build, like, own this entire technology stack, we can actually build a healthcare experience which is significantly better than what's possible today. And we realized the old medical record logic we were designing for the other idea was really meant to become the primary driver of healthcare. So we can use the technology, but now we can ditch the old idea. And I told our team, like, what do you guys think about it? Like, are you guys, this is crazy, it's not, it doesn't feel doable at all, but it would be really fun if you try to do it, right? So, and they kind of agreed to work on it and ditch the old idea. And I told investors, and I told them that they could get their money back if they don't like this idea, but most of the time they wanted to put more money than kind of putting their money back. So, and what we did next is, there's a video here, I don't know whether it will work, but, so we opened a small clinic in San Francisco, and in 9 months we started like from nothing, find some clinicians, nurses, build an application for the patients to essentially own the entire patient experience, and launch a clinic and start seeing patients. This is from zero, having no idea about how healthcare works, to having a clinic which is seeing real patients. So this is a quick video that we had produced in the early days. I don't know whether the sound will go back. So this was very fun, right? Because the challenge here was, like, even though we could raise some seed capital, healthcare is very complex, there are a lot of regulation issues. This was like, when we put up this idea, most investors thought, like, there's no way we can get this, like, get something viable in the next 2 years, so we should use third-party software. But all the third-party software would make the experience terrible. So we kind of decided to kind of get into like a big undertaking, very quickly build this kind of experience. And even after a month after we launched, it was very clear that patients loved this experience. Patients loved being able to schedule online and message with their doctors, get their lab results from their phone. So the proving that the experience was great was very kind of quick, to be honest. And then we started getting into the detailed platform. We started building a lot of other functionality. And so this became kind of essentially coming out. That became a concept where we want to provide care as you have a physician in your family. And part of this was a digital experience. So from the software side, scan your shoes card. We have a chatbot which collects most of the information, things like that. We have an array of different modalities for care. So, and these were mostly built in the first year, right? So we improved them significantly. And actually, there's also a physical component too. So we built Apple TV applications for the exam rooms. We have a kiosk for the front desk. So it became probably, honestly, I can't believe what we've been able to build. We only have five engineers, by the way. It's not even a very large team. Most of the time we had 2 engineers only. But this was sometimes something that sounds just crazy, so crazy that there's no way you can do it. It's sometimes a much better idea than something that feels like a viable, doable thing, right? But you had a building product is the product that you have to be good at, right? Unfortunately, there's no replacement to the kind of skill set that if you don't have it, you'll have to find it somewhere, ideally with a co-founder. So we can build everything from the branding, the packaging, the physical space experience. So it became a pretty interesting company. Okay. So all the slides are kind of going to about. Let's not worry about it. So what happened later is we were looking for this more scalable model, and we realized that we started working with hospitals. So what happens is we centralize all the user experience for physicians, for patients, all the technology, all the design, all the marketing for a provider brand. But we decentralize the actual ownership of the physical clinics. So we do have some clinics ourselves, but by and large, the clinics that operate Carbon Health are actually owned by hospitals. So they love this user experience, and they want to provide this in their geographic region, and we kind of do the end-to-end for them. So for the patient's experience, it's mostly Carbon Health, but the physical clinics are owned by the hospital, and the physicians are employed by the hospital. So we don't have to take the financial risk, so we can actually scale this to thousands of different clinics, right? So I honestly think it's a kind of great idea. The business has been doing very well. So we have 170 patients, 170,000 patients. In 3 years, we made a small acquisition, 7 clinics in the area, and we'll probably open another 50 clinics in the next 18 months, which again, sounds like a really crazy thing to do. But I think that's sometimes if you just put the goal and then reverse engineer what exactly you would need to do that, it does happen, right? And most of these very successful companies are started that way, right? So it has been very successful, but what's happening is, so fundraising, we raised the first seed rounds easily, right? But once we were trying to raise Series B round, it still became hard. We are doing it right now, we are closing it soon, so it's happening. But I want to mention that even if you're an established entrepreneur, what happens is, to start a very successful company, right? Two things has to happen at the same time. So first of all, your idea has to work, has to be a real good idea. So that is, if you have a bad idea which is not going to work, but then you cannot be successful. But in addition to that, it also has to be somewhat controversial, right? If everybody is thinking your idea is great, then the best you can get is a kind of small exit to an established company, right? So if when mobile started growing really fast and you started a mobile advertising company, that's very straightforward. One of the large companies will buy you, right? So that's what you're looking into. If you build an AI company right now doing one of the 1,000 different ideas about AI, it just generally makes sense. There's really almost nobody disagrees with the importance of AI. So you're looking for an acquisition. It's really hard to stay as an independent company because the domain is so straightforward, so it just makes a lot of sense for all the large players, right? So what happens, it has to happen for you to be very successful is that people have to really decide your idea, right? At least it has to be polarizing. And Udemy, nobody believed in Udemy's idea for a very long time because people believe that you can never start an online education business without having a certification or diploma attached to it. And this was the comment of 9 out of the 10 smartest people we know in this business, right? So even people who invested in Udemy, they kind of liked us. They liked that we were able to iterate fast and we were we were kind of scrappy, but they didn't think the particular idea was going to work. They thought we would actually pivot to a good idea. And what did happen is we actually turned out to be right about the idea. Like, it turned out to be right that a lot of people want to improve their lives, and learning is one of the best ways to do it. And you don't really need certification, you don't need the diploma for most of the learning that people need. So essentially, it turned out to be right, and that became the reason why we became very successful financially, and why it will be a public, kind of very large public company. So, but even with that, like under my belt, so we are doing carbon health. So there are a lot of reasons for investors to be really scared of this idea. So we are doing primary care. So the assumption is that primary care has absolutely zero margin. So we have 34% EBITDA margin on our clinic. So we already we figured prove that is actually correct. So people who are worried about anything with brick and mortar, which I think is the wrong way to look at it. They want to avoid the insurance billing, which I understand the complexity, but I think that most people who are concerned about this inherently are wrong, right? But even with that, this field is not very easy because you think they are wrong, you think we are doing the right thing. All the data we have shows that what we are doing is right. But even with that section, it's an uphill battle. You actually have to question yourself again and again. You will have to iterate on the idea until it becomes, or the business model, or the go-to-market strategy, until it becomes something that actually can become a viable company. How about we do on time? So.
We need to get on to the pitches.
Sure. So, but that's it. I want to kind of talk about the story of two companies. I was two different entrepreneurs starting it, but you can also see some of the similarities. Do you have any questions to me?
We can take a couple of questions. We've got time for maybe 2 questions.
Take one and a very nice. You said that a company needs 2 things to be successful. The first one was the controversial idea. What's the second one?
Your idea has to be a good idea.
Oh, that's okay.
Seriously?
So you have to be successful and also but in a controversial idea. Well, that's really the 2 things. And that's why I think a novel approach. I mean, if you can do a kind of non-controversial idea, but then your execution has to be really tight, very good. You just have to out-execute everybody. So if you're doing an AI company right now, you just have to do it a lot better than the 10 million other people who have the same idea right now. So, and even with that, you're looking for a kind of mediocre, mid-level exit, right, with that. But if it's a controversial idea that nobody's going to think is a good idea, then you have actually an opportunity to kind of start one of the biggest companies in the world.
One more.
Eren, does your app have any health monitoring built into it, or does it sort of integrate well with other third-party health monitoring apps?
So we are planning to do that.
Okay.
So that was one of the things that I thought was so important, so we should do it ASAP. And I'm glad we did not actually prioritize it before, because the reality is, once we opened the clinic and started seeing real patients, so actually first our friends became patients, and they all asked for that feature. They said, can I connect my Apple Watch or other stuff into a car band? And then when the real patients came in, we realized this was not even the top 10 priorities of the real patients. So we had to work on kind of reliable prescription alerts, lab results, and kind of essentially getting them in and out faster. So eventually it's an important idea about it is not, if you're a technical person like me, looking at healthcare from the outside, it sounds like it's one of the top 3 most important ideas. In reality, it's maybe idea number 30, right? So we will still do it, but not as important.
Real quick.
Your first startup is about education.
Mm-hmm.
Second is healthcare, and do you think the third one?
So I think it's going to be robotics. So probably 10 years later, I think starting a successful company takes 10 years. Right? It's not a thing where you start another company every 3-4 years. So I have 2 daughters right now, which are 8 months old. So my dream is that when they grow up and when they're 15 years old, we'll actually start building robots in my garage together, and then that will become my next business.
All right. Thank you so much, Eren.
And then it was still at 8.